Howdy, Team 42. It's your skipper here, Darius Dell, to present our 2025 NFL Draft Preview. One of my favorite days of the year, one of my favorite things to do. This has been my certainly my longest running hobby. I started scouting the draft back in 2000. I would, and shame on me for doing this, but I would go because I couldn't afford it. I would go to like Walgreens or something and put the NFL draft guide in like a Sunday newspaper because that was all I could afford. And I would literally read cover to cover every NFL draft guide growing up, literally every position, all 230 players or whatever they'd scout, and, just kind of really fell in love with the draft process. I'm certainly not unique. This has obviously blown up into being a gigantic industry, thanks to the Godfather himself, Mel Kiper Jr., and all the other wonderful analysts that contribute to this wonderful community. The NFL nailed it by having 2 seasons. This is as exciting in me to me and a lot of other NFL fans as the actual season. So without further delay, let me just hop right into it. So we'll start with our disclaimer. We got a lot of clients around the world. About half of our clients are international. So let me remind you guys, when we talk football over here, we're not talking about soccer. We're talking about the big boys, and we're going to spend a lot of time today talking about the big boys in the trenches. The game is won and lost in the trenches, as evidenced by what we saw on early February there with the butt kicking that the Eagles doled out to the Chiefs. There's two. At the NFL level, in my opinion, there's two ways to win football games. One, your quarterback is way better than everybody. And that's really hard to come by, right? Usually, generally speaking, at any given time, there's probably about 4 to 6 transcending talents at that position that can really elevate a team and kind of carry a team to and through a Super Bowl victory. The other way to win is having better big people, right? Football is a game where your 11 guys want to go that way, and the other 11 guys are trying to stop you from going that way. And so obviously that is best accomplished with big, strong, fast people who are athletic and can make some things happen in the trenches. And so, when we do these draft, previews, obviously you got the pencil necks out there running around, catching balls, having a good time, and you got the linebackers and the tight ends and the fullbacks, mixing it up. But really the game is won and lost in the trenches and with special quarterback play. And as we said, there's generally not enough special quarterbacks that can, carry their team to and through a Super Bowl. And so you got to build your roster, in my opinion, from inside out. You want to have better O linemen and D linemen than the other team. And if you do, chances are you're probably going to win the game. So let's get into it. We'll start with a kind of a review of what we said in the previous years. So we'll start with 2022. We were higher on Jameson Williams, Jermaine Johnson, and Malik Willis relative to consensus. Jameson Williams hit, Jermaine Johnson hit. Both have outplayed, in my opinion, their draft position. Dead wrong on Malik Willis, although I'm not giving up hope yet. But yeah, it's pretty clear he's not going to be a star quarterback. So definitely dead wrong on that. And then we nailed the stock down. Trayvon Walker has turned into an average at best player, taken first overall above Aiden Hutchinson. Come on, guys. What were you guys thinking? That's why you're the Jags, still drafting in the top 10. Trevor Penning, I want to say I think he went to the Saints, but just, really, all the stuff that I talked about with him exposing his chest, it's really shown up in the NFL, and he's turned out to be a great player. Ike Okwanu's gotten better. He's much better player than he had been, but certainly has underplayed his draft position as a 6th overall pick. Is not even the best tackle, in that top 10. I would argue Charles Cross has outperformed him for the Seahawks. Getting into 2023, nailed Nolan Smith and Will McDonald. Again, when you see defensive end, I'm going to let you guys in on a little trade secret here when it comes to scouting defensive ends. If you see a guy with a 2A go, he should go in the top 10. I think Nolan Smith was number 30. Will McDonald's drafted at 15. Come on, guys. What are you doing? Will McDonald, there are maybe 8 to 10 people on earth that can bend the edge at like 4.5 yards, and Will McDonald's one of them. That guy doesn't get out of the top 10, and they made a mistake, and obviously he's outplayed that. He's going to be a double-digit sack guy for years to come, as is Nolan Smith. Godly, in the run game, even Nolan Smith in the run game, he hits people pulling guards and takes on blocks like nobody's business. Was dead wrong on BJ Ojulari. I went to go look at his stats and his PFF grades for the last couple of years, and 0 and 0 in both categories. So just dead wrong there. Maybe there's some injuries, something I'm not familiar with, but obviously wrong there. And Cody Mock, I was big on Cody Mock, and he's turned out to be one of the top guards in the league down in Tampa Bay. and still getting better. And then I was wrong on Will Anderson. I thought he was going to get overdrafted, drafted really high. I want to say in the third pick in the 2023 draft. He certainly lived up to expectations. I thought he was kind of a mid first round kind of guy. Great player, obviously. He's Will Anderson, but he certainly outplayed. He certainly lived up to his draft position, and so mistake there. And then Lucas Van Ness, I just didn't see the bendability to play out on the edge and kind of put an early second round grade on him. He's kind of a tweener, and you don't really want too many tweeners in the trenches. You want guys who look like Tarzan and play like Tarzan. You don't want guys who look like Tarzan and play like Jane. That's not helpful. So I think we were right on Lucas Van Ness, solid player. But again, you're drafting people top half of the first round. You want real difference makers, and in my opinion, he's very clearly not. And then last year, we kind of shift to a tier-based system last year to kind of evaluate the positions that I think are most important: quarterback, offensive line, defensive line. We're not going to have time to get into defensive line today because there's so many, quality draft eligible kind of top 3 round type starter types in the O line in the trenches. It's kind of 2 back-to-back years of really good O line play. Now, what I will say about last year is that there was way more elite talent at the top of the draft. You had your guys like Amarius Mims, who I'm still super high on, Talisi Fuaga at the top, Joe Alt at the top. These are guys who you should expect to see on the All-Pro list for years to come at some point within the next 2 to 3 years, 1 to 2 years. Troy Fontano, I thought he would have to kick in, and if you kicked him inside a guard, you're going to wind up with an elite guard. Jury's still out if they're going to kick him in or not. I think he was out all of last year, so we'll see there. I think he can certainly play tackle, obviously. He'll be a fine tackle, but if you kick him inside a guard, and I think his skill set is much more, his skill set is conducive to being an all-pro type guard, in my opinion. And then, kind of shifting down a bit on the tiers last year. Yeah, J.C. Latham and kind of in tier 3, Graham Barton in tier 3. Graham Barton, I would say it's outperformed that. Really good player. I want to say down to Tampa Bay. I think they moved him to center. Excellent. And by the way, Tampa Bay, you guys got quite an old line here. You got guys I like: Cody Martin, Graham Barton. Obviously, we like Tristan Wirfs. Who doesn't like Tristan Wirfs? So shout out to my one of my best friends is now their offensive coordinator, Coach Grizz. So really proud of him and all the things that he's accomplished in his career, his young career. He's going to be an NFL head coach someday, and I couldn't be more proud of him. So Grizz, if you're listening, get those guys run left. I thought that just kind of summarizing last year, there was a lot of talent, but it was a little bit more dispersed across the various tiers. And that'll be a little bit different than this year. And then secondarily with the QBs last year, obviously it's probably the best quarterback class we've seen since '83, and quite frankly, what those guys put on tape as rookies last year was super impressive. All 5 guys that actually played and started last year: Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Mike Pennick, and Drake May. All 5 guys played exceptionally well and are going to be good football players at the NFL level, and you can really build your team around them. J.J. McCarthy obviously injured all year, gave Sammy D an opportunity to ball out in Minnesota until he, turned into Sammy D again back in the playoffs, and now he's a Seahawk, and so I'm rooting for the guy. But we'll see if he can shake off the cobwebs from that playoff blowout. That's neither here nor there. But one thing I'll say is I think I was dead wrong on Drake May. Drake May, if I could go back and do it over again, I would put Drake May, back at the top of tier 3, kind of where he was in the consensus board. That was essentially where he was at the consensus board. I just didn't see it last year. His footwork was sloppy and led to a lot of missed errant throws. But again, you're seeing more and more of these guys come into the league now where they're cleaning up their mechanics and they're cleaning up their accuracy in ways that you didn't historically see. And so I think, old heads like myself, who've been scouting the draft for 25 years now, I think we have to adjust and start to give these guys a little bit more grace with respect to their mechanics. Because if they have all the other stuff, then, you can assume that they're going to get a little bit better mechanically. But obviously you prefer to see it. That's let you in on another trade secret as relates to scouting the NFL draft. When it comes to quarterback play, you want to see it and you want to see a lot of it, right? Was it Bill Parcells said, I need a minimum of 30 starts or 36 starts or something like that from his quarterbacks. I can go on a diatribe for this, but there's so many things when it comes to scouting quarterbacks that are that makes it really hard going from college to NFL. One, the hashes are like half as wide, and so what ultimately happens is you have way more space when you're on one hash or another in college, and so it creates way less traffic. It's a lot easier to see. Routes develop easier. You have more spacing with the route concepts. You also just have less fast people running around trying to cover people and closing holes and zones. All that is untrue in the NFL. In the NFL, everybody's compressed in the middle of the field. Everybody's really tall, really fast, really long, and holes compress instantaneously. Zone, I mean, it's just instantaneously. Guys open, guys close. Guys open, guys close. And even in man coverage, obviously college DBs are not, they're going to be doing something else on Sunday when they're done graduating college. Whereas NFL DBs, capable of running around with these freaks and maintaining leverage and coverage and whatnot. So that stuff is super important. So it's really what I'm trying to say is the reason the NFL is so bad at drafting quarterbacks is because it's almost impossible to see the quarterbacks do the things in college that you need them to do in the NFL. You just don't see it. If you saw it, that would just be akin to a college coach making his own team's job harder to score points. It's easier to score points throwing these bubble screens and zone reads and all these kind of play action shot plays where the linebacker's out of position, all this kind of stuff in college, whereas you just don't see that stuff play after play after play after play after play in the NFL. Rarely do you see that stuff. So what you need in the NFL is a guy to be able to drop back, immediately find the open receiver, and get rid of the ball as quickly as possible. You just don't see a lot of guys hitting the top of their drop and getting rid of the ball. To me, that's the number one thing I watch for when I'm scouting quarterbacks is when that foot hits the top of the drop, is the ball coming out of his hand? And if the ball does not come out of the hand at the top of the drop, it tells me that it doesn't process information as fast as it needs to process information at the NFL level. Who's the best? The person I saw the best do that and coming out of college is Joey B. Obviously lighting it up down there, having an MVP caliber season in Cincinnati. And so one final thing I'll say on these tiers is, we kind of grade, I think NFL drafts, the smart GMs, not every GM, but the ones that consistently put their teams kind of in the top 8, Final 4, and into the Super Bowl discussion. In my opinion, they draft horizontal according to tiers. All the stuff that you see online with these consensus rankings and everything, it's all ranking. This guy's 35th and this guy's 37th and, this guy's 15th and that guy's 21st. Who cares? The rankings mean nothing. The rankings mean absolutely nothing. What matters are the tiers. What tier are they in? And that's how you should draft. Never draft. If there's a guy on the board and you have a position of need, here's how the best GMs draft it. Here's how Howie Roseman drafts, in my opinion. You go the best player available according to the tier. And obviously, if you have a need and there's two guys with similar grades in the same tier, then take your need. But if you have a need below, you have a player of need in a tier below, you have to ignore that need and just take the best available player. That's why he winds up with a D line that includes Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and let's say the big boy from Georgia too. Everyone, I'm talking about. But again, this is why you wind up with great offensive and defensive line play, because they understand the positional value of offensive and defensive linemen, and that's why you see the Eagles consistently draft offensive and defensive linemen in the first round, in the second round. They usually don't wait. They wait to the third, fourth, fifth round before they start attacking other positions, generally speaking. Howie Roseman is just constantly running circles around the NFL, and I'm very jealous as a Seahawks fan. So let me shut up and get to our 2025 draft preview. So the first thing you should notice when you go from 2024 to 2025 is the lack of words up here. In tiers 1 and 2, last year we had 2 quarterbacks in tier 1. And so let me actually explain tiers before I go back to that. Tier 1 is what we consider to be an immediate to an average to above average starter as a rookie with all pro upside in 3 years. So expect them to wind up on an all pro team within 3 years. Tier 2 is immediate average to below average starter with all pro upside in 3 years. So this is someone who very clearly has the tools and the freakiness to be one of the best players at his position in the NFL, but probably needs a little bit of technical refinement or coming off a major injury or something. There's some red flag that says he's not going to hit the ground running day one, but you can very clearly see a path to them being one of the best players in the position in the NFL. So that's tier 2. Tier 3 is an immediate average to above average starter with Pro Bowl upside in 3 years. So Pro Bowl, you're talking, so all pro, you're basically saying you're top, 2 to 4, 2 to 5 at your position in the National Football League. Pro Bowl, you're probably top 5 to 15, 5 to 20 at your position in terms of Pro Bowl potential in the National Football League. Was obviously a very good player. That's an excellent player, one of the best players on most teams. So that's our tier 3. somebody who can hit the ground running with Pro Bowl upside. Tier 4 is somebody who's probably not going to hit the ground running with the same degree of, output and production, but they also still have Pro Bowl upside. You could envision this person being among the best players at their position within 3 years in the National Football League. Again, kind of all pros, top 5, Pro Bowls, kind of 5 to kind of 15, if you think about that in terms of ranking players across the league. And then tier 5 would be immediate average to above average starter with solid starter upside. So the good teams in the NFL have a lot of tier 5 and tier 6 type players on it, right? You're only going to have so many, unless you're the Howie Roseman and the Eagles, you're only going to have so many Pro Bowl and all pro caliber players on your team. For one, you only get 7 draft picks, and really in most drafts, only 3 of them are valuable the first 3 rounds, generally speaking. If you hit on a 4th, 5th, or 6th or 7th round pick, it's more luck than anything. By the way, the whole draft is luck. There's a 2004 white paper published by who published that white paper. It was one of the Richard Thaler, I think, wrote the paper. One of the top behavioral economics professors in the world. I think he may have won a Nobel Prize, not for the paper, but for something else, behavioral economics related. And what he basically found out was that the probability that an NFL team selects a player better than the player they selected in the draft. The probability that an NFL team selects a player that is better than the pick immediately after them is 51% when they analyze the entire NFL draft. And it's only like 60% in the first round. Like it's obviously scales. It's easier to see the first round guys and the second round guys and so on and so forth. It's kind of like the Richter scale. But it tells you that this thing is a crapshoot. And part of the reason it's a crapshoot is not because NFL GMs and scouts don't know what they're doing. They obviously know what they're doing. It's just that you don't get to see a lot of NFL football being played on Saturdays, especially anymore. I don't know what's going on with these Gen Z coaches, but like, no offense, it's a lot of horizontal. It's a lot of patty cake up front. It's a lot of just a lot of catching up on the offensive line. It's a lot of standing up and reading as a defensive line. There's not a lot of real violence. And that's what happens in the trenches. Obviously, I talked about how different playing college quarterback is and NFL quarterback. There's nobody around you in college. There's all this open space in college, and it's the exact opposite in both cases playing quarterback in the NFL. So you just don't see a lot of NFL type football until you get to Sunday. So it's just hard to project. And so a lot of times what we rely on is measurables and all-star game setting type competition, one-on-one drills down in Senior Bowl. We'll talk about that shortly. That's the kind of stuff gives you a little bit more clues and more pieces to the puzzle. Don't give your GM and your scouting department, if you're an NFL fan, a little bit more grace, because this stuff is hard in terms of, you can kind of see it with people, especially when you're watching Big Ten and SEC football. But, when you start watching, no offense to the Big 12 or, or any other league, ACC, and that's kind of tier 2 there. And then beyond that, it's a total crapshoot. Most of the guys you're watching, including the prospects you're evaluating, are playing against people who certainly won't be playing in national football. Or if they are, they're not going to be very good players. And so what you want to see is big on big, good on good, one-on-ones. And you don't see a lot of that in college. So it does make this process harder. But that's why these guys get paid millions of dollars. So without further delay, I've been rambling for a while. Let's get into our 2025 NFL draft previews. We'll do some tiers. We'll go through each of the O-linemen really quickly, and then we'll watch some film. That's the best part of these presentations. You get to watch film through my eyes. I'll show you what I'm looking for and kind of really make this whole process fun when you guys start watching football on your own. So like I said, when you look at there's not a lot of people in the top 2 tiers. In fact, there are no people in the top 2 tiers at these 3 positions in the draft, which in my opinion are, outside of D-line, these are the 4 most important positions. These are the first round positions. You should not be drafting cornerbacks and receivers and linemen or linebackers and fullbacks and tight ends in the first round unless they're generational talents. Unless you have a very clear shot at this person being in the Pro Bowl within 3 years, minimum, I would say probably all pro upside. It's a supply and demand imbalance. There are less good O linemen and less great D linemen in rounds 2, 3, 4, 5. You pretty much run out of them by the end of the second round. And so, in my opinion, what should happen, and Howie Roseman certainly exploits this, is the mastermind behind the Eagles, he understands the positional value in the draft probably better than anybody in NFL history. In fact, I think he is the best general manager in NFL history. What he's accomplished in the free agency era is unprecedented and may never be repeated again in terms of his ability to build rosters and consistently outmaneuver the rest of the world. So if it sounds like I got a lot of respect for what they're doing down in Philadelphia, I do. So shout out to my boy Dean there, for season ticket holder, my boy Noah, season ticket holders there. Let's get into it. So Cam Ward, I think he's a tier 3 guy. If I compared him to tier 3 last year, which, again, I was wrong on Drake May, I would put him kind of in between Bo Nix and Mike Penix. I would say Mike Penix probably the bottom of tier 3 there. Somewhere between Bo Nix and Mike Penix is where I put Cam Ward. He's going to get drafted like he's tier 1 because he's a quarterback. It's a supply and demand imbalance. So, the price is the price. And that's another thing I see NFL GMs don't understand price. John Schneider, if you listen to me talk right now, our Seahawks GM, you don't understand how economics works. You think your price is the price, and it's not true. The NFL, the market for talent determines the price. It's not what you think the price is for offensive linemen. It's what the market determines the price is for offensive linemen. So if anybody knows John Schneider, can send this to him, please send this to him so he can stop ignoring the offensive line in the top, few rounds. And then there's a lot. And so, like I said, in this offensive line class, it's a good class. I like a lot of the guys. You got a lot of guys in tier 3 and tier 4, a lot of guys in tier 6 here, more guys in overall in this kind of top 6 tiers, which is, the bulk of the good players on any roster will be within top tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. These are the good players on your team. Folks in tier 7, 8, 9, 10, those are the below average players on your team that you're looking to the draft and free agency to replace. Right? You got to put 11 guys on the field on offense. You got to put 11 guys on the field on defense, but not all 11 are guys you want sticking around for multiple years. And so that's kind of the guys you're looking to the draft to replace, the guys you're looking to free agency to replace, they're down in tiers 7 through 10. And so, so like I said, there's a lot of solid starters and Pro Bowl upside type guys. Now, again, just because there's a lot of guys that have Pro Bowl upside doesn't mean they're going to make the Pro Bowl. You still have to make the Pro Bowl. But what I'm essentially saying is they have the potential to make the Pro Bowl. It's not a hard no that they're not going to. And so that's great. If you need O-line help, this is a great draft for that. If you want a generational left tackle, terrible draft for that. There are none. If you want a generational guard, I think there's one. We'll talk about him in a second. I think there's one. But by definition, not a lot of generational talent in this draft, period, especially at the positions that you should be drafting in the first round, which are quarterback, offensive line, and defensive line, period. So let's get into it. How we grade these guys, so obviously played offensive line at Yale, was a highly decorated player in college, was a UDFA prospect for the Seahawks, got a call after the draft to get invited to minicamp. I had already lost weight and kind of gave up my playing career. I wanted to get started on Wall Street. I knew I wasn't good enough to last, so I didn't want to waste my time and wanted to put my Yale degree to work. But so I think I know what I'm talking about here when it comes to evaluating offensive line play. I was, again, like I said, 4-year starter at Yale, highly decorated, really, really good player, NFL prospect myself. When I evaluate offensive line, and again, there's a lot of people here. Most years, you're not going to see this many guys with, first to third round type grades. I mean, this is just 21 guys here. Most years you're talking about 10, 12 guys. So it's a solid club. You're going to get, if you need O-line help, and raise your hand if you need O-line help. I think everybody out there, unless you're an Eagles fan, probably raised their hand. Unless you're Eagles or Bucks fan or a Lions fan, you should have raised your hand because you need O-line help. Everyone needs O-line help. You see all these freaks coming after these quarterbacks in the NFL. There's 2 ways to win in the NFL. Like I said, you have a quarterback that's a transcendent talent, and there's only any given time 4 to 6 of those people. And the only other way to win is have your big guys be better than the other team's big guys. And so, this is going to be a good draft for improving the quality of your O-line. But it's not going to be a great draft, like I said, for, acquiring elite talent, like the best players of the world, like the Jamar Chases or the Pat Mahomeses of the world. You're just not going to, that's not this draft. But it's a great draft in general because there's a lot of really, really talented, back half of the first round all the way down through the kind of top half of the third round type guys. That's a lot of people. And it's going to make a lot of football teams better. So getting into how I think about grading the offensive line, I would say there's probably 5 areas of that I'm evaluating whenever I'm evaluating offensive linemen. I'm looking at footwork. I'm looking at hand placement. I'm looking at pass blocking. I'm looking at run blocking, and I'm looking at finish. And then, we average those grades out, and then we adjust the grade for position No offense to my friends who are guards, and no offense to my interior O-line friends, but we all know playing tackle is much harder than it is playing guard. The closer you get to the ball as an O-lineman, the easier it is to play. The centers always have help, especially when there's a shade or somebody on them, a zero or a shade on them. They're going to have help, guard help in most plays, unless there's somebody walked up and mugged in the A gap or something like that. Guards, it's harder to play guard than it is to play center. You don't often have help. Let's say you gotta reach a 3 technique. That's one of the hardest things to do in football. But generally speaking, when you're talking about who has the hardest job in the National Football League outside of playing quarterback, I would say it's got to be the tackles. You got to block the Myles Garrett. You have to block the Myles Garretts and the Micah Parsons and the T.J. Watts and the Nick Bosas of the world. I mean, good Lord, these guys are enormous. They're incredibly fast. They're Olympic sprinter fast. They're enormous. They're incredibly strong, and they generate so much force. I don't think the average person, who hasn't played football, understands how much force is generated when these people hit each other. I mean, someone who's 275 pounds running a 4.5 40 or 4.4 40 running into somebody who's 325 pounds. I mean, it's a car crash. Every single play when you're talking about dropping back, deep drop back pass, third and long type pass plays as a tackle, boy, you got to absorb a lot of force. You got to move really quickly because these guys are really fast. They're really bendy, and they're really strong. So it's a very hard position to play, and there's not many guys on earth who can play it, let alone play it well. And so that's why, in my opinion, it's such a premium position in the draft. There's just not that many people that can do it, let alone do it at a good level. So getting back into the grades, when I'm evaluating footwork, you have to have like a avatar of what you're looking for as a scout, or that's another trade secret. If you're a young scout, don't just go out there and say, I think this guy's good or bad, or I like him or don't like him. Start evaluating very specific traits that you need to be successful at the position, and have a real clear distinction in mind of what success looks like. When it comes to footwork, we're talking about Trent Williams here. I think he's got the best feet of anybody I've seen. I mean, maybe there's somebody, back in the day that I'm not familiar with, but of the folks that I've been paying attention to since I've been watching football since the mid 90s, or probably even early 90s, I would say he's got the best feet that I've seen. So let's just take a little bit of a look at Trent Williams and his feet here. What you want to see as a tackle is a guy whose feet never leave the ground in pass protection. What you don't want to see is a guy who's plodding and feet are going up and down, and he's belaboring to get to the top of his drop and to get to his points. You want to see guys who can just slide effortlessly, like they're like a hair clipper, like someone put a hair clipper on your head. Like that's what their cleats should feel like. I don't know if this is a great video for that, but I think you guys get the point. Let me see if I can find. Yeah, you see that? You see, like, just perfectly always in balance. That big hunk of man, just center of gravity. Right there, always in the middle of that center of gravity. So this is what it's supposed to look like. And the ability to redirect. Not getting too far outside of the man and forcing him in. And when you do that, sometimes you do want to overset the guy and force him on the inside because you're not worried about that power. Trent Williams, one of the best football players I've seen in my lifetime. So most people have seen it in their lifetimes. Get into hand placement. So Joe Thomas, I think, in terms of what I've seen in my lifetime, Joe Thomas probably has the best hands in terms of hand placement. I think when the average person watches football, they just see big man bumping into big man, or big man running this way with the big man next to him, or there's just big man. But when you play football, you realize that there's games within the game. There is martial arts being played every play at this level. The hands of the D linemen are so good, it's so quick. And as a function of that, not only it puts the onus on the offensive line to get their hands right where they need to be, but they also have to reset their hands and keep their body clean and get the defensive lineman's hands off of them. So you're not going to be able to see this. I might have to slow it down, but there's like 3 plays that happen in like 2 seconds at this play. So here's Joe Thomas, the left tackle. Watch the martial arts between him and this defensive end on this play. See, and I'll rewind it if you miss it. 1, 2, 3. 3 in like 2 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Four, actually, the defensive lineman, four. There was 4 points of contact, another one, point of contact, handoff, point of contact. I mean, it's just, it's incredible. Not only you have to do it quickly, but you have to get your hands in the right place. Obviously, you want to be controlling the inside of the man, the breastplate. I think you need to do it with different hands. A lot of times you see these young guys in college or certainly in high school, two-hand strike. You cannot two-hand strike anybody in the damn National Football League. You will lose a lot of reps. You need to have independent hands up there because the guys are so good. If you give them one target to hit, they will get rid of it, and the play is over. Sack, or play is over. Running back, tackle for a loss. Right. So you need to have two hands both in the pass game and in the run game. And so when I scout players, I want to see if they have, they're ambidextrous. They have two different hands that are doing two different things at a very high level, resetting, constantly hitting and striking their target. That's what you want to see. When it comes to pass pro, I think Jonathan Ogden's kind of the top of the cream of the crop there. You watch Jonathan Ogden tape, it's just like, it's like just taking a car. It's taking a very expensive Uber to get to the quarterback against these guys. And quite frankly, the only person that ever really gave him a little bit of trouble was Dwight Freeney because he was so short. Jonathan Ogden's like 6'9", you know what I mean? But look at this, it's just fun to watch. Hashtag fun to watch, it's just, look at this. Get out of here, little man. And that's a National Football League defensive end, one of the biggest, strongest, baddest human beings on the planet. Defensive ends in the National Football League, I would say pound for pound, are probably the best athletes on the planet. They could play basketball if they were good enough at basketball because they're certainly tall and fast enough and can jump high enough, but they're also freakishly strong, right? They're freakishly strong. They're freakishly fast. They're freakishly big. And so anybody that can consistently keep their butt between them and the quarterback, and most importantly, anchor. Remember that car crash you talked about? Can you anchor against that speed to power when 275, 280-pound Myles Garrett is running full speed right into your throat with his helmet right in your throat? Can you stop that force without putting your butt on top of the quarterback on the ground? A lot of people can't do that. And so that's what, so that's why you like a guy like Jonathan Ogden. You can feel very safe as a quarterback with this guy in front of you. Anthony Munoz for finish. Boy, it's fun to take to watch. One of the better players, widely considered to be one of the great offensive linemen of all time. I would say if I rank, if these are my 5 favorite offensive linemen of all time, as a former offensive lineman, I would probably put, Munoz number 5 out of this list because, I just think the tech and the technique has evolved over time in a way that, the guys that play later, that have played later, have a little bit more tools in their toolkit. But boy, what you can't take away from Anthony Munoz, boy, is his finish. This man wanted to bury you on every play. Just get out. He's constantly tossing dudes out of the club. Every play, he's trying to bury you. It's so fun to watch, man. Watch, he's gonna drive block a 5 technique here pretty soon. I think this play here against the Chargers. He's going to drive block a 5 technique. And again, this is the kind of stuff you really don't see at the NFL level because the defensive ends are too big and strong and fast. You're not going to hit the leverage and the angles that you need to be able to knock them off the ball. All right, where's this play at? And I'm just bloviating. Here it is. There it is. Let's go. So that's 1. Like every play, you watch Anthony Munoz film. There it is right here. This is a NFL defensive end. He just bodies. Just head up, 5 technique. Mano a mano, stood you up, walked your back, dumped you on the pile. You just don't see that at the NFL level ever. Never. That's high school stuff. You don't even see that at college anymore. That's high school stuff. Nobody playing in the National Football League should get stood up and driven backwards, straight back like that. You're a professional athlete. And so the fact that he was able to do that kind of stuff consistently to other NFL players was fun to watch. Just hashtag fun to watch. And then finally, when it comes to just broad run blocking prowess, I think you got to tip your cap to my man, Big Walt up in Seattle. Definitely the best Seahawk of all time. One of the great football players of all time as well. And this is one of the great football plays of all time. Watch the left tackle on this play. Watch the left tackle on this play. This is a reach block on an outside zone, and he takes Mike Rucker, who's a Pro Bowl defensive end, on a 15-yard ride down the field. Watch this reach block. And just take some, I mean, this is insane. This, I mean, you don't see this kind of stuff at the NFL level. I mean, and this is the kind of stuff he did on a regular basis. That's a big walk right there. So when we go and back into the you know, these grades, you know, that's what I'm looking for when it said, I'm looking for, you know, footwork. I want to see Trent Williams. I want to see if you know, you can cut grass with your cleats without picking your feet up and redirect and change direction easily. When I see hand placement, I want to see precision and accuracy, and more important, keeping your body clean as it relates to getting the D lineman's hands off you. That's what Joe Thomas was excellent at. Pass blocking, Jonathan Ogden. Can't get around him, can't get through him, and if you piss him off enough, he's going to bury you. You know, that's what you want. Run blocking, Walter Jones, proper angles, getting your hat where it needs to be so you can threaten the leverage of the DN. That's why he was able to drive Mike Rucker 15 yards downfield. He reached him. And Mike Rucker said, oh, my God, I got reached. Coach said, don't get reached. So Mike Rucker's focusing on not getting unreached, going that way. And Walter Jones, with his 325-pound butt, is going this way. So guess what's going to happen? Mike Rucker's going to wind up on the ground 15 yards later. So when you talk about run blocking, it's not just who's bigger and stronger. You're never going to just bigger and stronger person at the National Football League level. It's, can you get the right angles to create movement? And when you hit those angles, are you strong enough to actually follow through and run your feet and run these people and dump people on piles? And that, at the end of the day, finish the dumping the people on the pile. That's the fun part. You know, if you're an O lineman, you don't really get to do much, right? You don't have any stats. It's almost like you didn't even participate in the game if you watch in the newspaper. And quite frankly, you want to stay out of the newspaper as an O lineman. You don't want to be in the newspaper as an O lineman. At the end of the season, you want to be in the newspaper, but during the season, you don't want to be in the newspaper because that means you're doing your job poorly. The football game is best enjoyed watching the skinny people run around because it's fun to watch. As an O lineman, what's fun to watch and what's fun to play is the finish. Are you dumping guys? Are you running people through piles? Are you creating traffic jams and burying people? And you know why that matters? Because the big plays happen when the O-linemen finish. When you let guys slip off blocks, you let guys get to the running back, you let guys get to the guys downfield chasing for fighting for extra yardage. You know, when you let that stuff happens, it you know, you don't have as many big plays as a team. You know, you probably can sneak one big play a game just from somebody finishing a block out, out in space up front. So that stuff's super important. There's another reason why you want to finish as an O-lineman. It's harder to play defensive line. You're doing the same thing, but you know what defensive linemen have to do that O-linemen don't? Tackle people. At some point, you have to disengage from the giant man trying to move you out of the way and also bring down somebody who's really fast and probably also really strong. And so that drains energy. That's why you see D linemen rotate and O linemen don't rotate, right? Both people are getting tired over the course of the game, but if they played the same number of snaps, the D lineman will get much more tired. And you can accelerate them getting tired by finishing them, forcing them to get off the ground constantly burying them, pushing them on the ground, dumping them over piles. That stuff is annoying as a D lineman. That stuff makes you super tired, and it just speeds up the process by which they get fatigued, so you can start leaning on them in the fourth quarter and creating that push in the run game so you can close out football games like the best teams do. And so that's why finish is super important as well. So let's get into it here, and I'll be quick with the actual players because I want to get back to the film. So in my opinion, Gray Zabel is the best offensive lineman in this draft. There's a lot of mixed opinion on Gray Zabel right now. I think he's, where's he on the consensus big board? He is consensus big board 28, 28 on the consensus big board. I think that's way too low. His grade would be an 8.6. So how I grade, like I said, there's a raw grade. That's the top of this kind of radar chart here. And then there's the position adjusted grade. Like I said, I subtract a point for the guys who are playing guard, and I subtract 2 points from the raw grade for the guys who are playing center. Just one, to insert an element of positional value into the analysis, but two, also to insert an element of, just degree of difficulty into the analysis. It is harder to play tackle in the National Football League than it is to play guard. It is harder to play guard in the National Football League than it is to play tackle, and that's true at the college level as well, but even more so, in my opinion, at the National Football League level. So Gray Zabel is a 8.6 prospect, which would put him up in tier 2 But because he's an offensive guard, it drops that minus, that's subtracting that 1 point, puts him down here in tier 3 as it relates to how you should think about drafting as a general manager. And I know at least one general manager in the National Football League is going to see this video. So thank you for sending that to him. So I love Gray Zabel. His finish, his finish might be better than Anthony Munoz. I mean, every single play, this guy wants to put you on a highlight tape. It's like you cannot ever take any part of the play off when you're playing against this dude. He's trying to end your soul. He wants your parents to be sitting up there in the stands weeping. That's what Gray Zabel is, and I love it. Phenomenal. He's just, look how full this radar is. I mean, great footwork, great hand placement, great pass blocking, great run blocking, great fan. I'm a big fan of this guy. I know he played at North Dakota State University. And a little bit of talk about his arm length and all this stuff. And I think that's partially why he's going to move inside to guard. But folks, I think you're looking at a Zach Martin. I watch Gray Zabel. I see Zach Martin. And I know that's a hot take coming from North Dakota State, Zach Martin, Notre Dame. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you play. It matters who you are as a player. And this man went down to the Senior Bowl and kicked everybody's butt so much that he was named the Senior Bowl's best player. Now, the Senior Bowl is the best all-star game. There will be a bunch of guys in the first round down there. There'll definitely be a lot of guys in the second and third round down there. That's what the Senior Bowl is. These are all the best players in the draft. The only people who don't play in the Senior Bowl as the best players in the draft are the people that know they're going to get drafted in the top 10 or around the top 10. The rest of the really, really good players are down in Mobile competing their butts off, and Gray Zabel won the award for being the best one down there. So let's just watch some film here. This is fun to watch. Look at those feet. That's what you want out of the feet right there. And another thing he did, it's subtle stuff as a O lineman and D lineman, but this guy's in a wide three technique, very wide three technique. And what you want to do is you never want to cross face when you're pass setting on somebody. You never want to go all the way past their face. You want to keep your outside eye with their inside eye. That's where you want to keep them. You want your inside hand to be right in their chest, on their inside hand, And so that's it's just masterful to watch. I mean, look at this guy, it's like he's playing against little kids. These people don't even come close to getting pressure. Look at him. Anchor, boom, right there, boom, boom. Oh, love it, love it, love it. Let's get back to the one-on-ones. I like the one-on-ones better. Here it is. I mean, this man he got feet for days. Get off me, move, get out of here. Playing against little kids. Looks like he's playing against little kids. Yeah, watch this anchor. Yeah, like he this is what it looks like. Get his head out. You see how he got his head out? A lot of guys, when they get to that position, they're getting that position because they're not natural knee benders, so they're bending at the waist. This man can sit down and get his head out and keep his back straight up. And you see, and that allows you to tap into that hip power that allows you to anchor. And it looks like he's playing against little kids. These are guys who are going to go to the top 3 rounds in the NFL draft that look like they're like haplessly rushing because they know they're not going to win. They like slow down and stop. That was a nice win there by number 5. But again, this is Zach Martin kind of stuff, folks. This is what it looks like when Zach Martin blocks people. That wasn't great, not a great rep, but again, playing a defensive end type. If you kick him on the inside, you get him against guards, he's going to be more athletic than guards. I think he's more technically sound than most of the guys he's going to go up against. And people were concerned about his anchor, and he proved it down in the Senior Bowl. So I'm a big fan of this guy. I think he's the best lineman in the draft. On a position-adjusted basis, he's 7.6. My next favorite guy is Kelvin Banks. And again, Kelvin Banks right now on the consensus big board is 113. So round 1, 13th pick. I don't know enough about team needs or whatever, how good or bad the NFL GMs are to know where they should get drafted. But he's the kind of guy you're going to want to grab in the top half of the first round. Anytime you see a 7 on somebody, that's a top half of the first round kind of guy, in my opinion. Your tier 3, that's the top tier 1, 2, that's top 10, top 15. Tier 3, you talk about top 15-ish, top 20 maybe if they slip, but you don't let these, at premium position like left tackle, this guy's not getting past 15. I doubt if the NFL teams are smart, I wouldn't let him get past 10 or 12. But we'll see. And that's depending on who else is there. In fact, I wouldn't let him get out of the top 10, quite frankly. It's left tackle with a 7th grade on it. You take him, you run up the card. What I like about Kelvin Banks, it's pretty balanced, man. Just balanced. He does everything well. He doesn't finish well. And, I know he played with an ankle injury for most of the season, so maybe that was part of it, but I still want to see more finish from you, Kelvin. If you listen to me, Kelvin, I think you're a phenomenal football player. Just give me a little bit more finish. Very balanced. It's like he's been playing O-line his whole life. He just does everything well. It's effortless and it's fun to watch. Josh Simmons, big. If you need pass pro help, if you're a passing team and you need pass pro help, this is probably one of the better pass blockers in the draft. Certainly, yeah, he's one of the best pass blockers in the draft. Just fluid, smooth mover. It's just fluid and smooth. One thing he annoys me, though, he opens his hips a little bit too early in his pass set. I think that's something he's going to have to fix in the NFL, because if you start doing that, what's going to happen is you're going to get a lot of cross face, a lot of guys beating you on the inside, and more importantly, you're going to get a lot of bull rush. When you open your hips early, if you don't keep your hips squared to the line of scrimmage as long as possible, you're going to get bull rush. The second you turn your body like this, and that car crash is coming right at you, where's your butt pointed? Your butt's pointed at the quarterback. You want your butt pointed that way towards the end zone when the car crash happens, so that you go that way and not into the quarterback. And so he's got to clean that up, but he's otherwise a really good football player. Solid in the run game, but not great. Ariante Ursary, because this is way too long, this man, there's not a lot of human beings out there looking like this and moving like this and moving people like this. He plays football like this picture looks, like he's playing against little kids. Like this guy, 49, stuck his arms out all the way like this with his fingertips. I guarantee you he wouldn't touch Ariante Ursary's chest. And you can tell he hasn't played a lot of football because his technique isn't great. But what he has that other people just can't, this God-given, just I'm bigger than you, my arms are longer than you, and you can't go through me. And his feet are good enough to where if you can get him some more technique, you don't have to worry about him being a liability against the speed rushers, which I would say he probably would be now as a rookie. But that's stuff you can fix. I think you can fix that kind of stuff. What you can't fix is your anchor. You either got it or you don't. You either got long arms or you don't, and he's got it in spades. So I'm a big fan of him. Cam Williams, consensus big board has him all the way down at round 3, pick 90. I would take him in the second half of the first round. I'm a big fan. I'm a big Cam Williams fan. I think they had some great tackle play at Texas. You're not going to be impressed by his pass blocking and his footwork. He's kind of got lead balloon type feet, but he can play tackle and he will play tackle because he's got the anchor. He can absorb that car crash really well. But what you're going to get out of Cam Williams, if you like running the ball, if you're Detroit, if you like running the ball, you're gonna, boy, his film is fun to watch. Boy, he creates movement. He can line up and push people backwards. Like it's fun to watch. So big fan of Cam Williams, particularly for power-based run schemes. You're coming downhill at folks, gap-based run schemes. You want that kind of stuff coming out of Cam Williams. Tate Ratledge, guard, 6'6". I think I have a 7.6 grade on him, but it drops him down to 6'6" because he's a guard. I love Tate Ratledge. He's a great football player. Unfortunately, I think he was injured for a big chunk of the season, but boy, you can just tell this guy's been playing football for a long time. Like he's got phenomenal hand placement. It looks borderline Joe Thomas-ish the way he can set, reset, hit his strike his target, snatch, trapping people, getting people off, knocking people down. It's just, he's a ninja. He's got a black belt in martial arts when it comes to the hand-to-hand combat that you need to succeed at in the trenches at that level. And another thing I like about him is, bad boy, is this boy ugly. And that's what you want out of your guards. Your tackles, like me, we can be pretty. Your tackles are pretty. I was pretty. I had my visor on, my skinny wristbands, and my Vic shoes. I look good. I was one of the best looking players out there. Guards, on the other hand, you want your guards to be butt ugly. And this man is butt ugly. And that tells me he's a great football playing guard. And so I would draft him second half of the first round, top half of the second round type guy. Again, he's not going to get drafted that high. It's consensus big board has him at number 2. He's number 2, 56, so kind of middle of the second round. It's a little too low for me. I would definitely take him higher than that. Armand Mimbu, one guy that I'm at the top of the consensus big board. He's 1-8, so 8th overall. I'm just not as high on him. I got a 6.6 grade on him, and so that kind of puts him. What tier does that put him in? 6.6. That puts him in tier 4. Again, I don't. It's fine. He's got Pro Bowl upside, but I don't see a overall pick from this dude. He's got great footwork and okay pass blocking. If you have great footwork, you should have great pass blocking. For whatever reason, he just doesn't it doesn't translate. And most importantly, this man's a non. He's got a lot of work to do in the run game. I mean, constantly falling off blocks, can't generate that pop and run his feet. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen very often with him. Now, again, he's got great pass blocking, elite footwork, but everything else kind of needs work. It kind of looks like a phenomenal athlete who you just said, go out there and block and get in that guy's way. And that's kind of what's happening with him. So, it's a nice ball of clay to mold. He's got great measurables, and I think you can turn him into a pro. He's got Pro Bowl upside because of all that. But I think the actual playing of football, he needs to get a lot better at. That's why you see things like hand placement and run blocking needs to work. And then in the finish, I mean, he's probably one of the lowest people in the list when it comes to finish. I need a lot more finish out of my offensive lineman from him. So I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole in the top half of the first round. Maybe second half of the first round if you're excited about his measurables. But like I said, there's some other guys that I like more previously. Getting into next guy here, Donovan Jackson. Huge fan of Donovan Jackson. He's a 6'4", but I got him at 7'4" raw grade as a guard, but he's 6.4 because, you're subtracted a point because of the positional value. I think he can play tackle. I think he can play tackle just fine, but it's very clear he's going to be a better guard, in my opinion, because his feet, like I said, that mowing of the grass, it's not as clean. He's a foot picker upper, and you don't have two things that happen in the NFL when you pick your feet up in pass pro. One, it slows you down, so it takes you longer to redirect. But two, if your feet are not on the ground, you have no power. And the second you get car crash, you're going to go flying backwards. And so, like I said, you want guys who are smooth movers who can glide without effortlessly. And, like a young Swami D. And I don't see that out of him, but I see a lot of everything else out of him. Solid pass. Like he's got great angles in both the run game and the pass game. And boy, does he like finish people. I wouldn't say he's a grades able when it comes to finishing people, but he's probably number 2 in the class in terms of I want to dump and bury people. I want to embarrass people. I want them to hate playing me. I want the end of the game to go, boy, that sucked. Looking and want to get out of the stadium. So, and that's what you want out of your old lineman. So a big fan of Donovan Jackson. I would take him in the second half of the first round. Josh Connolly, 6'4" tackle, it's great footwork, it's just a solid player, just a solid player all around, just solid, but he doesn't have the anchor, and he is going to get bull rushed every single play until he gets his core strength up. That just is what it is. You think about a Khalil Mack car crashing into this kid, he's going to fall straight on his back. That 7 and that 6, the 7 and the 6 that you can't see the one on his back underneath his name, he's going to put that on the grass way too often to keep your quarterback healthy. So he's just, I don't know if you can start him year one. He's just got to go hit the weights, period. But he's a good football player, solid at everything. But he will be a lot better of a football player if he can get that core strength up. Tyler Booker. I like Tyler Booker. You can easily see him translate to starting NFL guard. He kind of reminds me of Damian Lewis, formerly of the Seahawks, now of the Panthers. Just a solid player. Maybe never makes a Pro Bowl, but will start for 10 years. That's who he is. His feet are heavy as molasses. I mean, it is just that's not even that doesn't even make any sense. But that's an old line coach joke. Now I'm realizing you guys aren't listening to my inside jokes. Don't know my inside jokes, but anyway, it's just like it's feet are in quicksand. And so you think about the Aaron Donalds of the world. I mean, nobody can block Aaron Donalds. That's not a good comparison, but like a Kalijah Cansey will just literally run right around him. Now again, in the run game, this guy will literally put Kalijah Cansey in a burlap sack and put him where he wants him. So that's what you get when you put this guy on up front. But just a solid starter, constant. He'll be there, and depending on what's happening around him across the league, could make the Pro Bowl, but we'll see. But you can easily envision this guy, starting for 10 years. So that's you don't wear a C on your dress on your jersey in Alabama if you're not a great football player. So and also have great character too. So you like to see that. Ozzie Trapillo. I like Ozzie Trapillo. Don't love Ozzie Trapillo. I think anytime if your hands are doing this, the play is over already. I mean, I'm seeing a big juicy 7 and 0. If I'm a DN, I see a big juicy 7 and a big juicy 0. I don't even know which one to strike because his hands are so far apart. You're never going to get there in time to rest that power. So he's got to clean up his handwork. His hand placement leaves a lot to be desired. But boy, does he like to bury people in the run game and also finish. Again, he reminds me of John Runyon. He's like a baby John Runyon. As a matter of fact, John Runyon Jr. is playing in the NFL, who is not like his dad. This guy's more like his dad. Solid player. Yeah, yeah. Again, there's a lot of solid, good offensive linemen in this draft. We're still in the sixes here. Will Campbell, boy. And by the way, I have a 7 grade on Will Campbell, and as we know, grade 7 is tier 3. That's kind of middle first round type grade, which is where it's a little bit he's higher on the consensus big board. He's actually 5th on the consensus big board. So the consensus thinks he's the 5th best player in the draft. He is absolutely not the 5th best player in the draft. Moreover, he cannot play tackle in the National Football League. You see the little baby T-Rex arms? Now again, everybody's talking about this guy's arms. It's like not new news that this guy's not talking about this guy's arms, but it shows up on tape. This man cannot handle speed to power at all because his hands are too short. And you see it play after play after play. And if it's happening to you in the SEC, it will definitely happen to you in the AFC North. You know what I mean? So like that, I think he's a phenomenal football player. Boy, does he know how to get his hands inside in the run game. Boy, he likes to run people. He's got rare power in the run game. I think you put this guy in guard and you set and forget it. He's going to a bunch of Pro Bowls. Now, if you're a team and you're drafting somebody in the top 5 picks of the draft, which is where he is on the consensus big board, you can't put him at guard. Obviously, if your team's that bad, you can afford to have this guy at guard because even though he can't play tackle, he's still probably better than the 2 tackles you're going to try to put on the football field because your team sucks because you're drafting in the top 5. So this is a big conundrum for the draft. He's going to be a phenomenal guard. So how far down do you let him slide before you take him? Or if you're just desperate, like the Patriots, they're desperate, they're probably going to overdraft him. If I'm the Patriots, I'm drafting Kelvin Banks or Josh Simmons. Josh Simmons is coming off a major knee injury, so I feel safer about Kelvin Banks. If I'm the Patriots, I don't feel good about Will Campbell if I need a tackle because I don't think this guy can play tackle at the National Football League. I mean, he can. He just won't be very effective at it with those baby arms. And it's not like again, a lot of people have had short arms before him and have somehow figured out a way to play tackle. It's just that he has not figured out a way to play tackle with his short arms. He's not a good enough technician in the pass game. He is in the run game, ironically, but not in the pass game to overcome his deficiencies. It certainly shows up on tape. And again, like I said, if it shows up on tape at this level, it's going to be a problem at the next level. Marcus Mbow, weird area chart. This guy, bizarrely, great hand placement, great run blocking, terrible pass blocking, terrible footwork. I think you just but he can it's bizarre because his terrible footwork in the pass pro, it's like it's plodding feet. But in the run game, he's lightning quick, cuts off backside guys, backside 3 techniques is, getting out in front of guys, reaching guys. It's like he only spent time on run plays in practice. That's what it looks like when you watch his film. You get this guy and you teach this guy how to move his feet. One, you kick him down in guard because he's a 6'2", solid football player, but I subtract a point because he's a guard. I think you kick him into guard and you put him in his own scheme. He's going to be fantastic in the run game. He's like a perfect 49ers, type lineman for the Shanahan scheme. That's all I have to say about him. Jonah Savainea, ironically, he's kind of a big plodding man, but he understands, football is one part how good, big, strong, fast, tough you are, and another part how well do you take all those ingredients and turn it into use the recipe to turn it into a beautiful dish. You have all the ingredients, and you need all the ingredients to be successful. And you also need to take the ingredients and turn it into a dish. You're a chef. That's what a football player is a chef. And so he has he's got the great recipe for pass blocking and does a really great job of pass blocking, even as a tackle. But I don't see enough of the foot speed to stay at tackle in the NFL. He doesn't have enough foot speed to stay at tackle in the NFL. And I think if you put him in pass blocking guard, I don't think he's ever going to get beat for a sack if you put him and kick him down in a guard. But the problem is, even though he's a massive human being, and you can see it in the image, he leaves a lot to be desired in the run game, right? Like you look at this guy, you think mauling guard, but it's more like a dancing bear, and a polite bear. It's like a polite bear. You don't want polite bears. You want grizzly bears. You want polar bears. You want Kodiak bears. That's what you want. You want the kind of bear that if you see it, you go, oh, let me call my family. And that's not who he is. Anthony Belton, we're getting towards the end of this, 4.8, solid okay starter, solid at everything, not good at anything. Emory Jones, 4.8, same thing, solid at everything, not really good at anything. Wyatt Millham, I see why he got his butt kicked in the Senior Bowl. I didn't even watch it. I saw the Senior Bowl stuff back in February, but I watched this tape in preparation for this. Not really great at anything, solid at everything, okay, like serviceable. It's not even solid, serviceable at everything, and will play tackle. He's certainly big enough and can anchor enough to play tackle, but he's just not very good at anything. I don't know. Where's he at? Round 373. That seems about right. That's about right. That's about right. And then Jarrett Wilson, center, solid center. He's definitely going to start, but nothing to write home about. And then Charles Grant, everybody's hyping this guy up from William and Mary, FCS school. I didn't really see it. When you watch Gray Zabel, who's also an FCS player, and Charles Grant, it looks night and day. Gray Zabel looks like an NFL superstar playing against little kids, and Charles Grant looks like an above average FCS football player. I'm a Yale football player. I'm an FCS football player. There's no slight to the FCS. There's plenty of FCS guys in the NFL. In fact, Yale has 5 guys in the NFL right now, one of which is one of the best linebackers in the league. So, the FCS creates good football players and good teams. And quite frankly, I think that Ivy League is going to start dominating the playoffs pretty soon. You give us a couple of recruiting classes with playoff intentions, I think we're going to start to see Ivy League teams win the national championship. You mark my words. I think we're going to go. I think Tony Reno will bring a national championship to New Haven at some point. But again, we're talking FCS football, so that means it's time to go. So that's it for the presentation. I did promise you guys we can watch some QB film before we wrap up. So we'll start with Cam Ward, and like I said, when I'm watching QBs. When I'm watching QBs, what I'm looking for first and foremost, is how quickly does this guy get rid of the football when he hits the top of his drop? 3-step drop, ball out. 5-step drop, maybe a hitch, ball out. 7-step drop, maybe a hitch, ball out. My problem with Cam Ward is that there's not enough of that. Most of his great plays, as you can see here, running around, extending plays, doing this. See, ball should be out right there. Ball should be out right there. And again, great play. Not knocking him, but I tell you right now, he is not fast enough to do that in the National Football League. That would have been a 3-yard gain in the National Football League. This kind of stuff right here, sack, 6-sack fumble. He's playing against guys that run 4.5 or 4.7s and 4.8s, in the front 7. The guys in the front 7 National Football League run 4.4s and 4.5s. They will catch you and knock the ball out. And so my problem with Cam Ward, and again, I think he's a great football player. I got to, he's in the tier 3, which is where I had, Penix and McCarthy and Bo Nix, who all balled out last year. He's that level of quarterback. You can definitely build a team around him, and does make some special plays in the off script stuff. My problem is if your best players are off script and you're not an elite athlete, it concerns me. It's concerning. It's concerning. And that's kind of what remember Caleb Williams last year. It's kind of that was kind of the problem with Caleb Williams. It's like, you're not a good enough athlete to be this kind of off script. At some point, you need to just run the damn offense, quite frankly, And so, Cam Ward, if you listen to me talk, big fan of you, brother. Do some great things in the league, but at some point, just run the damn offense, please. Like, again, you're not going to be able to do this. You just jogged past 3 defenders. Now, those 3 guys at Cal Berkeley's a good school, so maybe they're going to be engineers, lawyers, and doctors. But they're darn sure not going to play in the National Football League running that slow. But the guys in the National Football League will definitely hit him, and he better learn how to slide, So, balled out. No. See, there it is. There it is. That's what you want to see. Hit the top of the drop, throw the ball. Because that tells me, one, you knew where you had an anticipation of the coverage. You read your key. Every play has a key. There's an extra player. There's another secret when you're watching quarterbacks and scouting quarterbacks. It's really hard to do in college because you see all the hashes are. There's so much space on the field during the pass plays. But one of the things one of the reasons why watching the quarterback hit the top of his drop and getting the ball out quickly is so important is because it signals a lot of stuff. It tells me you had an idea of what the coverage is pre-snap. It tells me that you could read your key post-snap really quickly. And it tells me that you know where the open receiver is going to be based on your understanding of the coverage. If it's cover three, you got the seams or the flats. If it's cover two, you got the honey hole. You got the cover two, you got the post and the honey hole. Let's go cover four. We don't have to get into coverages now, but my point is, where to go with the football when you see guys top of the drop ball up, top of the drop ball out. That is mind and body. And I don't see a lot of mind with him, but I see enough of it. But I see it, but I don't see enough of it, and that worries me. That's why he's in tier 3 and not tier 1 and tier 2. But he's going to get drafted first overall because it's a supply and demand imbalance when it comes to talented quarterbacks entering the National Football League. And then our friend Shador to wrap up. I'll tell you right now. Last year I was higher on Shador Sanders. I probably would have had him in like a tier 4 or tier 3. I think I would have had him in tier 3 last year. Kind of in the same category as Cam Ward is now. But when you watch his film now, it's like I think he got worse in 2024 than he was in 2023, ironically, because he had better supporting cast this year. I think his bad habits really show up on film. He holds the ball too long. Now, Colorado's O-line is embarrassing it's offensive to offensive linemen. It's offensive. They are so bad at pass blocking. So many unblocked guys, so many guys getting their butts whooped. It's terrible. I feel bad for Shador. It's hard to watch, really. But Shador makes bad plays worse because he holds on to the ball. He takes these bizarrely deep drops like he's an elite athlete, and he's very slow. He holds the ball one hand too much. That's got to stop. They will take the ball away from you in the National Football League. Everyone will. And so my problem with Shador, and I see a lot of getting to the top of the drop and getting rid of the football. But when he gets rid of the footballs, it's like me throwing the football. His arm is very below average, incredibly below average. Again, I don't think I'm saying anything that's news now. It's a week before the draft. I'm sure everyone's come out with his take. It didn't take me very long to figure this out at all, but he's got to throw with an incredible, he's like Tua. He got to throw with an incredible amount of anticipation on every play. And I don't see an incredible amount of anticipation on every play. What I see from him is I want to hunt and make big plays. And you can't live in that world unless your name is Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson. There's not a lot of human beings on earth that can, hang out and make plays. And so my problem with Shador Sanders is I think he's going to have a lot of the Caleb Williams syndrome. He's not as great an athlete as Caleb Williams is, and certainly doesn't have the cannon for an arm that Caleb Williams has. He can be off platform and zing it 50, 60 yards downfield and make your mouth go. Shador Sanders has none of that. And so he needs to play the game from clean within the pocket. And I don't see enough. I don't see enough of this. This is what I want to see. Hit the top of the drop, throw the football. Now, this is man coverage, and you're going to throw the 12 on man coverage on every play in college. But that's it. So we'll wrap up there. I think I've been going a little bit long. Just want to say thank you for tuning in. One of my passions. It's nice to take a break from all the nuttiness and the craziness that we got going on in markets and with policy and the economy. And, it's a stressful year for a lot of people. It's not a stressful year for a 42 macro client. You're obviously making a ton of money in gold. You're clipping your coupons in cash. And we'll be back along the bull whenever it returns. But until then, just be patient. Signing off, Darius Swami D, presenting our NFL draft coverage for 2025. Catch you back here next year. Cheers.